Okay, yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, can you
So
rephrase the two
Yes,
questions? Hold on.
essentially,
yes,
the first question
the
was
first question was concerned
other
about
religious
other
movements
religious
like
movements like
appears to have
that
been
appears to
successful
have been
in
successful
engaging
in engaging
various cultures.
the various cultures.
And so the question is
And so the question
whether Christianity could do same
could
or
do same or could
if
really
I got him,
if I
could
got
really be
him to could
successful
really be
in
successful
engaging
in engaging the cultures as uh,
we see in
we
Hinduism.
see in Hinduism.
That
Is that the am I getting you right?
Well,
okay? Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
yeah. Well, first of all, I think as culture bearers, say if we have grown up in a Hindu or a Buddhist culture or things like that here in Asia, it is important basically that kind of work is done by the culture bearers. The missionaries can help, but I think the culture bearers need to be much more aware of of what culture themes they have. And I think this is largely an agenda for the nationals, for those who actually have been raised in those cultures and actually have been in contact with Christianity as it has been brought to us by the West. So I think we need to have, first of all, an understanding of our own deep structures. Because often I think many, especially here in Asia, many of us are terribly westernized. Um, and because we are westernized, our mental models of what the gospel is about is really from the West. So we ourselves are not able to really engage our own cultures. So I think the main agenda, first and foremost, is for those of us who are culture bearers to think very carefully about what really are the deep structures in our cultures. And from our own digging into the scriptures, looking at it from our own lenses, uh, I think it is important to see how those two can connect. In other words, the deep structures and our own understanding of Christianity as it is challenged by our cultures. So this agenda, I think, is rightly the main agenda of the culture bearers themselves. I think missionaries from the outside can help because their lenses may allow us to see things that, culture is always out of awareness. You don't know your own culture until you have come face to face in contrast with some other cultures. So the missionaries have something to contribute as well. But I think this is mainly the agenda of the culture bearers. And the so-called success of Eastern religions in the West is really not because they have been engaging the deep structures of the Western culture. It is because of the emptiness that now has happened in a massive way in the West, precisely because of their rejection of the Christian roots of their cultures. And we see that very well in the reaction of the religious right in America. Uh, they have surrendered to secularism 300 years ago. And because of that, now they are fighting secularism through the coercive force of the law, which to me is going to be a be unsuccessful in the end. They may have power, but political power or any kind of state power is not the way to advance the gospel. I mean, Paul says we do not have worldly weapons. Our weapons come from the Word, and having that Word engage the culture in which we are in. And when a church withdraws from the intellectual and social spaces, I think that is the end of us as Christians in a society.
Yeah, well, I hope it helped address his concern earlier. There is a follow-up, and I think it's requiring some example of the deep structures of cultures that we need to deal with in order to bring about the true transformation, and not just the, according to him, the cosmetics that are on the surface. Any examples of those deep structures?
I may come in here. Hello, Melba. Lovely to
Hello, Gillian.
hear.
It's good to hear from you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've articulated it in the chat box. As you talked about the surface structures and the deep structures, I understood something of what I was doing in my own PhD research 40 years ago. I sought to understand the cultural consensus in Europe that underlay the thinking of William Robertson Smith, whom I was studying, and I identified the Christendom mentality and the European peoples from the late 15th century, and then the attitude to primal religion and how that influenced Old Testament studies. And so those were the things that helped to explain him. Now I understand that what I was actually looking for were the deep structures of European societies, the things that everybody accepts without question. They don't even think about it. But it moves their understanding of Christian faith. It intimately affects it. So thank you very much. And
Yes,
hopefully that might be an answer to other folk looking at the African setting, which was the question that was Dr. Gazy put. So thank you, Melba. God bless you.
yes. Thank you. Actually, from where I sit, it's very interesting to me that the Druids are back, in Europe, in England, and in Britain as a whole. And this is very interesting to me as a social anthropologist because now you have this commonality of great interest in the Druids, the primal religions of the British Empire. And then you have, again, also the resurgence of African traditional religions. So this is a very, very good, to me, a very good area of research all over again. The the commonalities of these primal religions, whether you find that in the West or you find that in Africa and elsewhere.
Thank you very much. As we say here, issues of gospel are perennial, so
Yes.
we don't finish dealing with them. But I saw Dr. Blasu's hand up earlier. If you can go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Dr. And thank you, Dr. Nage. Well, I want to be sure I heard you right. Speaking about the possibility of a new reformation in Asia, given the rise of reading the Bible, by many people in Asia now. So exactly what do you say and what do you mean and what do you envisage to be that new reformation in Asia?
From seminaries, from pastors, is Romans 13. So I said, I think it's important for us to dig deeply into our own scripture with our own eyes. And that's why we have an institute. Because I said it's important to think through these issues from our own lenses as culture bearers and also as people who believe in scripture. So we did our own Bible studies, our own scholarship, and in this whole area of gospel and culture and social responsibility and so on. And this was 46 years ago. And after that, we developed this small community, or that I call hermeneutical community. In other words, people who are able to read the Times because we are social scientists, most of us, and also read scripture and put them together, integrate the lens of scripture in analyzing social issues. And I feel that that is where we must always begin. In other words, there are lots of us who are, university educated and so on. But I think it's important for everybody to be biblically literate. And this is what we have had to learn as a community. We must try to understand scripture from our own eyes. And actually, after that, there has been a kind of inspirational, um, uh, a kind of inspiration that has spread to people who are now wanting to read scripture, because we live in a Catholic culture. 85% is Catholic, and for a very long time, since the